Okay, let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Drive 10x ROI with Low Code and App Builder. This will be sort of like a 100 level webinar, but I am going to cover some of the survey results that we have taken recently as promised, so you can get an idea of what others are thinking and how the market is going. So today's agenda, we'll go and do an App Builder overview. We'll look at the 10x feature set. We'll do a demo, then we'll wrap it up. A little housekeeping, ask questions in the Q&A or chat. Make sure you say to public so everyone can see it. And of course, the slides and recording will be sent tomorrow in a follow-up email. Some upcoming webinars I think that you will all be interested in. I'm kind of combining now the App Builder, Ignite UI, and Reveal webinars because we're getting a lot of customers on the DevTools side interested in Reveal and a lot of Reveal customers interested in App Builder. So there's a lot of crossover happening as we are really dramatically maturing these products in the market. So September 20th for Reveal, we're going to look at integrating REST APIs for data viz and JavaScript apps. These are all coding demos for Reveal. So it's not like slides and marketing. We're writing code. So even if you're just interested in seeing how it works, please stop by. September 21st, we released features earlier this year around hierarchical data support in App Builder. We're going to go over how to use and implement those in the hierarchical controls that exist in App Builder today. October 4th, do-it-yourself data visualizations. So Reveal has features that lets you use your own domain-specific visualizations within the construct of the existing dashboard viewer. So the filtering would work, all the data binding, all that other good stuff. So how do you do that? And then how do you take advantage of some of the latest new features in Reveal that we added around DIY data viz? And then October 5th, building master detail apps. I'm going to show a little bit of that today, but we are releasing this feature within the next few weeks. So by October 5th, it'll be a released, ready for market feature. So it won't be in a preview and all that other good stuff. So the code generation will work and all that. So I'm excited for that October 5th webinar. So what is App Builder? If you're new to App Builder or just need a refresh, App Builder is a cloud-based, low-code, WYSIWYG drag and drop tool. Our goal is to help digital product teams, which means you, anyone with a developer, maybe a designer, product manager, product owner, build apps faster than ever. So through this WYSIWYG toolbox, drag and drop, set some properties, generate code, you can get to where you need to be to those outcomes faster than you ever would be with hand coding, up to 80% faster through all of our surveys and customer interviews. Our goal is to really bring that fun Visual Basic 6-like experience to app building. When you have to build a new app, that's always very exciting. Like, it's a new maybe technology, and maybe a whole new experience you can give to your customers. But then you start to get into that mundane, boring, repetitive code. That's where App Builder eliminates all of that and actually makes it fun to build screens, removes all those bugs. You know, over 60% of your time is spent on the user interface, and that's also where most of the bugs are. So if you can eliminate those bugs by using a tool, letting it generate the code for you, you'll be ahead of the game as you're building out your experiences. So with App Builder, of course, you do get that WYSIWYG drag and drop. You can start from scratch or choose from a pre-built template or a pre-built sample. Our toolbox includes all of the enterprise-grade components that you would need to build an app experience. And the nice thing is, if you are one of the lucky ones, one of those 10 to 20% that actually has a design team, they can build out the screens in Figma or Sketch, and then you can import those into App Builder and save yourself all of that time. So we have a design system with UI kits that lets your design team do what they need to do, and then App Builder natively understands how all of that works. And why? It's because our design system matches our UI components, and App Builder is that glue in the middle that can bring everything together and then generate that code for you. So very cool. And then, of course, we generate production-ready code. Angular, Blazor, web components, And before you know it, it's going to be React. We're working on React now. React will be here soon, which then is sort of like we've got all the bases covered in terms of what you would expect in code output. So the core feature set's on the left, the roadmap is on the right. The core feature set, we've gone through a lot of this before, but every release, which for us is about monthly, we're adding more and more capability. So over the last year, 2 years, you've just seen App Builder go from basically a screen designer now into a semi-competitive low-code experience. We're really getting there. And I think with this release coming up in September, once we have this master detail, navigation, routing, global variables, on-page master detail, we're really getting there because we are really handling tons of code that you would normally have to write. The idea with low code is that we take care of most of the code that you would normally have to write that takes up most of your time. If you can do that with drag and drop with WYSIWYG, you are, as I said, way ahead of the game. So looking at the roadmap, near term, which is going to be the rest of this year, React Code Gen I mentioned, we have a brand new React grid coming, which means once we ship this React grid, our Angular, Blazor, web components, and React grid will all be identical. They'll have the identical UI, the identical API. So whenever you're designing a grid, you don't have to think about, oh, what if I change to React later on? Am I going to have the same features? No. Ignite UI, all the components are the same across every platform. So you don't have to worry about components being different. Obviously, grids being the most important. I mentioned master detail. So global variables, on-page variables, and navigation parameters is coming. At least global variables and on-page variables will ship in the next month or so. Navigation parameters may come shortly after that. But once you have that, then you can basically cover all the bases in terms of saving variables across pages, clicking something to update something else, doing CRUD. All of that will work perfectly with these variables. It's very exciting. Then we're building out a form builder for data entry. This kind of means is once you bind your data, just drag that data set onto a form. We'll auto-generate the form for you with the correct UI components and CRUD, and then you don't have to write any code. So very cool there. And how can we do that? Well, we've got CRUD, we've got all the UI components, we have data binding, so we're just kind of tying these pieces together to eliminate code that you would normally have to write. We're enabling custom control support, so if you have your own controls and you want to put them in the toolbox, you'll be able to do that. A lot of formatting options on text inputs and the way data binding works. And then a smaller but important feature is archiving and backing up projects. Then longer term, looking forward to Q1, Q2, the hierarchical grid will be in App Builder. We're going to update the way pivot grid can be configured. We'll have more extensibility out of the box, updated data connectors. You'll be able to deploy applications right from App Builder. And then what's even cooler is we are going to ship an embedded version of App Builder. So today we have an on-prem version. We have a SaaS version, which the SaaS is really what most people use. Enterprises are using that on-prem version if they have real strict security protocols. But imagine you have an application where you want to embed a low-code tool into it for your customers. You'll be able to do that with App Builder as well. So exciting roadmap coming up. How do we do all of this? As I mentioned, we have the design system with UI kits that match to the Ignite UI control. So everything is backed up by Ignite UI. Ignite UI is over 120 UI components. Those all surface in that toolbox in App Builder. We can deliver advanced UI experiences. One of them is in this video that you can see here on my screen with the doc manager and the chart and the grid all working together. Our focus is high performance scenarios. So thinking about real-time data, remote data, virtualized data, all of that is built into the charts and the grids. So you don't have to worry about your application slowing down. Your apps always look good. We have super deep theming support in the product. That's how we can have a WYSIWYG builder and App Builder for theming. But it's also how you can morph your apps to look whatever the branding experience that your customers need, you can match with this product. And then unrivaled product support. If you haven't used the Discord channel, I highly recommend you use it. We'll paste the link into the chat, but that's where you can talk to the product team in real time and get answers quicker than you ever would through a forum or maybe through regular support. So I always recommend trying Discord if you haven't, because it's a community, it's growing, and you're interacting right with the people that build the actual product. So why is App Builder critical to you? So 80% of dev teams do not work with a designer, which means most of you that are on the call today don't have design resources. 60% of development teams use no prototyping tool. So we do these surveys. We're going to do one today, and you're going to see that the same questions, and we compile them and we report on them, but most people aren't using prototyping. 85% of you say that UI, screen layout, and working with HTML and CSS are the biggest challenges and time wasters, which means most of your time is spent on stuff you don't enjoy doing and you're not great at. So why don't you use a tool to help you do that? And then 92% of developers use low-code tools for 0 to 10% of their job, which means you're not using low-code right now. The low-code revolution is here. So you need to get onto the bandwagon in one way or another. So dip your toes in with App Builder if you haven't already tried. And then, of course, data sources. So most developers are using SQL Server, REST, and Excel. App Builder supports any data source via OpenAPI or REST. Here's a chart of the most recent survey that we did. 42% is Azure or SQL Server, 29% REST, 15% Excel. If you're using Excel, an easy way to expose your data to App Builder is through excel2json.io. This is a extremely useful product, I would say, that Brian Lagunas wrote in conjunction with Andy on our design team. And it will take all of your Excel data, turn it into a public API that you can expose directly to App Builder. Otherwise, just start up a web API project in Visual Studio and use any one of the tools or watch any of the webinars we've done to expose your SQL data, your Oracle data, whatever as a web API, and you can get data into App Builder that way along with full CRUD. So there's lots of ways to get going with data in App Builder today, even if you have it trapped behind a firewall and blah, blah, blah. Just create some fake data, throw it up in Excel2JSON, and start linking into App Builder to build out screens. All right, with that, let's take a look at a demo and see how all of this kind of ties together. And I'm also going to do a little bit on the master detail, which, as I mentioned, will be shipping later this month. Okay, here I am at the infragistics.com homepage. I'm going to go up to design and development. You can see we've got Ignite UI here, but I'm going to click App Builder on the top. We are going to click sign in. So if you want to start a trial, this is how you would do it. Just click sign in, and the first time you sign in, you're going to go through a couple extra questions and your trial will start. In this case, I've already logged in, so I'm here at my workbench is what I call it, the main screen for App Builder. If you are logging in for the first time, it'll look a little bit different. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Over on the left-hand side, I have all of my workspaces. Workspaces are how you can work with your teams or share applications with others. You can basically invite members and all this other good stuff. I'm going to create a new workspace. We'll call it webinar, delete me later, like so. And I'll create this guy in here. I'm not going to invite anyone, but I want to highlight what your default page will look like if you're logging in for the first time. So I've got up top, welcome to your to App Builder, new application, import designs. On the bottom, we have examples of the fully beautiful showcase samples that you can start with. So for example, if I just want to start with one of the existing samples, either to learn from it or to modify and then add my own data, I can just click try sample, and then I will go into the App Builder editor with that application already created. The way App Builder works, the first time that you log in or until you dismiss the screens, you'll see here on the bottom, help is readily available. So you can always click this help guy and watch quick tips, video tutorials, get to docs, or send feedback. On the left-hand side, I have all of my views. So my master view, remember this is a single page application builder. So you have a master view and then child views or components inside of it. Then I've got the individual views that make up my application. So you can see this has a lot of interesting stuff. And because these are sort of starter apps, if we didn't build out the whole screen, you'll see just a note here to just start building out the application that you want to build. So it kind of looks pretty darn nice. If I go back to my home screen and I select an item, there's a property editor on the right-hand side, so you can change control specific properties. In this case, where's the data bound to? What type of visualization should I use? What are the data fields for it? Do I want to use aggregates? So here you can just kind of modify everything about this chart. Do you want to use one of our built-in palettes? In this case, it's using some custom palettes, change different properties on the way it might look, etc. So each individual control, for example, I'll click on a grid, it has different options here. Now, over on the left-hand side, I have my views, as I mentioned, but I also have the outline of this layout. So it's sort of like a document object model of what I'm looking at. So you can see as I drill in, there are the components that make up the screen. And as I select these items, the property editor changes on the right-hand side, and that item is highlighted inside of the view. So I also have options here. So for example, if I don't want customer ID to show, I can click and the hide button and it'll disappear from the view. If I select company name, it highlights the column. And in this case, maybe I want to change the header, and I can just change it to company name like so and hit enter. And now that updates that property. So it's very powerful, this outline here on the left-hand side. And then the other thing to note about the outline, especially when you're dealing with the grid has the option to do custom templates. So a header template, maybe a cell display template, a cell edit template. And when that happens in the outline, you'll see an expander, and then you'll see the template options for each one of those within the column. I'm going to uncheck these so that goes away. Moving over to the left again, I have the toolbox of all the components. Here is everything that you would expect to build out an app with a low-code tool. Everything here matches to the Ignite UI controls that I mentioned in the presentation. So for example, if I go back here and let's go to this screen, I'm going to delete everything here. I'm going to pick a new layout. We have some pre-built layouts. These are the most common layouts that you would use for a new screen. Let's do a 2-column layout, and I'm going to drag this guy over here to the left to make it a little bit smaller. And I will go over to my toolbox. Let's search for a list view. I'm going to take the list and I'm going to drag it. So now this is on my form. And then maybe I want to do a grid as well. Let me drag a grid over here. So now I have a list and I have a grid. Maybe I want to set up some sort of master detail scenario. Now I did a drag and drop there. If I delete that grid and I hit the Control E shortcut, I can also then search for components in this little shortcut tool. So let's grab grid, and now I have a grid on the screen. Some tips and tricks for this grid. It comes built in with the Excel style filtering and sorting enabled, but maybe you want more features because the grid's very powerful. Just click the plus icon in the feature section and start adding all of the features that you might want to use in this particular grid. So you'll see here, as I select these options, everything is just kind of being enabled in the grid. And now my grid is a full-fledged, beautiful grid with every feature you could imagine. And let's say that paging here, it's showing 10 records. Let's change this to 50 records. So each hyperlink that you see in the feature set will allow you to customize it even further. So row selection, maybe I want single row selection and I don't want to show the checkbox. So that's how I can do that. But I'll leave it at multiple and we'll show the checkbox and we'll just see how that works. Now from here, if I want to see how this actually looks in real life when I generate the code and run it locally, I can just click the preview button. And I have the grid here, just like it would look in a real application. Here's my multi-select option that we have, all of my summaries. I can do things like interactively do the group by just like a group by should work normally. I can check the box. I can do my advanced filtering dialog. I can export this to Excel. So you have all of the features here that you would expect when you run the app in real time. Even all of the navigation works on the left-hand side. So here, all of my nav works. As I select these options, you can see that the correct screens are showing up. And when I go down to tasks, this is that new task screen that I built out. If I move this over a little bit more, you'll see that we've got code that's actually generated for this screen. So you'll see the IGB grid. The code generation target for this is Blazor WASM. It's in the upper right, and that's the definition for this grid in Blazor WASM. The beautiful thing is, okay, I'm not using Blazor maybe for this application. I'm using Angular. Well, guess what? All we did was regenerate that code, and now this is what that grid would look like in Angular, and this is everything that you would need for this page, including all the data binding, all the property settings, etc. You have the TypeScript and the CSS that you would need for these pages. So it's extremely powerful, and it gives you basically everything you need to build out your applications. So let's say you already have a screen in your app and you just need a new grid. You can just go and highlight this grid, copy this and paste it into your app, and you've saved all of the typing and all of the figuring out to actually do this with all those columns and all those property settings that you would normally have to do yourself. So you don't have to generate the whole app all the time. If you just want part of the app, you can do that as well, or part of a screen, you can do that as well. So let's go back to the edit side. Now for my list view here, you'll notice that it is not data bound, but I do want to data bind this list. So on the properties editor, you've got a data mode and a none. So I'm going to select data, and let's go ahead and go and show our Northwind employees. I want to not just show 5, let's show all the employees. So you can see here that my list expanded to however many employees might be in that data set. And then all I need to do is do some data binding. So let's say I want to show the last name. So you'll see last name showed up for each item. The subtitle, let's do a title of courtesy, like so. So there's Miss Lewis and Miss Carolyn and Honorable Betam, etc. Maybe I want to use a different style of list. So we have some different options here for you, like avatar plus title, single line, header, like so. So you have various ways to approach how you want to handle data binding with these components. And then the nice thing here is if I select the column layout that this is in, so you can see over in my DOM layout, I've got a column and then a list. I'm going to tell it to do an automatic overflow, and the wrapping can be wrap, no wrap, or whatever. I'm just say no wrap. And in this case, when I run it, I'll get a scroll bar. So now you can see that I can scroll up and down on those items that are in the list, and all of my employees are there. And then if I want, generate this code and kind of wire things up. But with a couple clicks, I've created new screens with new components and bound them to data. So what would be like a next step for me? Maybe I don't like the theme for this particular application. In this case, it's using a custom theme developed by the person that created this template. If I go back to the default themes, you can see we've got Material Light, I've got Material Dark, I've got Fluent Light, I've got Fluent Dark, I've got Bootstrap Light, and Bootstrap Dark. So I can choose whatever theme I want, and this will apply to my entire application. So the entire app will then take on this new theme. If you want to create a new theme based on an existing theme, you can click the little overflow and say duplicate, and maybe you want to change the typography from Roboto to Righteous and just save that. So now this will take on the same colors, the same elevation, the same roundness, etc., but I'm just using a new font. If I want to create a whole new theme myself, I can give it a name, my theme, like so. Let's base it maybe off of Bootstrap, maybe Bootstrap Dark. The colors, we can change the colors to kind of whatever we want. Maybe we'll do a light blue. If I scroll down here, we can change the typography from Roboto to, let's do Rubik Dirt. Roundness, I want everything to be very round. And the elevation, I want to be elevated. So I'll save this, and now that will apply, and now I have this look and feel for my application. If I go back to my views and I look at my home screen, you can see that everything now has taken on this new theme. It looks exactly how I want. So you have complete control over how this might look. And then finally, if I look at assets, these are images and things that I may want to use in applications across my workspaces. So the assets actually are tied to a workspace, not to an application. So in the case of your team is working on maybe a set of prototypes for a particular customer, you can upload all of your custom imagery or iconography, and you can use it right here for every app in that workspace. But let's go back to my views, and I want to add a new child view. So in this case, I'm just going to leave it at child view. That's fine with me. And I am going to use a standard layout. I'll just use the default layout. I won't do anything too complex here. I'm going to do a Control E, and I'm going to add a grid. So now my grid, maybe I want this not to be so tight on the page. I'm going to set its margin to 30 pixels. So now there's a border around this and it kind of looks good. I'm getting sick of this theme. So I'm going to go back and I'm just going to use back to the Lato theme, which was the default. In this case, I want to use a different data source. So I'm going to go to the data tab and I'm going to add a REST API. Now, if you remember in the slides, I showed the example of using Excel to JSON as a way to get your Excel data into App Builder. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's call this Excel to JSON customers. Like so. And I am going to add a remote JSON containing data. Where am I going to get that from? Well, let's go to a new tab and let's type in excel2json.io. We could go ahead and create a new file, or I could browse my computer or drag and drop. Let's go ahead and browse. Let's go to desktop. I've got an Excel file here, northwindcustomers.xlsx. You can see what it looks like. Let's go ahead and open this guy. And there is my customers. And look, over on the right is my JSON. So just like that, I have my file. And we're going to call this one Webinar Customers, because the sheet name is going to be the name of the file and when you save the file. So let's go ahead and hit save. So now it's saved it and it's giving me a unique URL. So I'm going to copy this, but I'm also going to go to my files. So let's go to my files. Let's go to Webinar Customers here on the bottom, and this is what I just happened to do. So let's go back to App Builder. Let's go ahead and we'll paste this in. I will hit save, and now I'm ready to go. Let's go ahead and select data. It'll automatically select this for me. I can change this name to customers, like so, and I'm going to click done. Now I'm going to select the grid. I'm going to go to data. There's my Excel2JSON customers, and I'm going to select customers. And just like that, I have data that is bound to a grid that's live from the web. So this is actually live data. Now let's go back to our home page here, and I've got my master view. But what I want to do is when someone clicks tasks, I don't want it to show this task screen. I want it to show this child view. So let's go to master view. I'm going to select tasks. And you'll notice on the interactions options on the right-hand side, there is a navigate to, a show hide, open close, run component action. I am going to change the navigate to from tasks to child view. So now when I run this and I click tasks, it's actually going to open up my new view here. You can see that it's created a web component application. So let's go ahead and change this to like Blazor WebAssembly. And I will leave everything as is. We can go over to edit mode, and then let's do the final killer feature, which is code generation. So you have options when it comes to code gen. You could obviously pick your target platform, or publish something to GitHub, or download a zip file. So if I download a zip, that's just going to unzip and I can do whatever I want there. But let's publish this to GitHub, and let's create a new repository. We're going to call this Webinar 10x ROI, like so, and we'll make it public. I'll create the repository, and I will click publish. So now what this is doing is it's creating the repository and doing all the stuff that it needs to do up in GitHub. And this is the way that you can manage now all the source code between App Builder and your team. Let's go ahead and open up this in GitHub. So there it is. Let's go to code. Let's open this up with Visual Studio. So let's go ahead and click open. Now it's opening up in Visual Studio. It's going to ask me to clone this repository locally, which is good. We can go to our Solution Explorer. It's going to install whatever dependencies might be needed. But let's just go ahead and run the application and see what we get. So this fires up. My browser fires up. And we can see that the application loads. I have exactly what we saw in App Builder. If I go to my contact screen, this was empty. Contracts was empty. Reports was empty. I think accounts. Yeah, accounts had data coming from a grid. Now if I go to tasks, we'll see that our tasks show up just like we expected. I have my Excel style filter, which you'll recall was the default for this particular example. So if I want to do a quick filter here on some fields and click apply, I can do that. We'll go back. I'll do a select all and apply this. You've got features like sorting. I didn't enable grouping or export to Excel or anything like that, but I could. But that's how easy it is to get from your application over to something in App Builder, or your idea to something in App Builder that you really want to build. And now it is production ready, pixel perfect code to what you saw inside of App Builder. So finally, what I want to do is let's go back to here, and I want to start a new tab, and I'm going to show you the App Builder preview. Again, this is stuff that's going to ship in a few weeks, but I want to highlight it here so you are ready for it. So I'm going to click my edit here on my master detail testing. This sample is a little bit different. What I'm using here is my Northwind database. So as usual, if I go over to Northwind Cloud, you can see all of my web APIs here. So I'm using, this is a SQL Azure backed database with an open API in front of it. And then I'm using it in this application here. So I've got my combo box, I've got my grid, I've got another grid, and I've got quantity per order. The new feature that we have here is if I go to my master view, I've got this variable section. So I've created a global variable called customer ID. That is set to ALFKey by default. You can see here I set it to ALFKey. If I go to my child view, I'm binding this to the API customers min, which is in my Northwind Cloud, and it's setting a value. That value is actually setting my global variable. Then on this guy, it's loading up another API, but I'm using that variable to pass to my open API to go pull that data from the cloud. And then when I do a selection changed, I'm also setting an order ID, which will load this grid and it'll load this chart. So if I just run this guy, you can see ALFKey showed up. If I select an item here, my grid changes and my chart changes, like so. If I grab another customer like Bergs, you can see that everything is updating in a master detail fashion. No lines of code to do this. This is so exciting. This has to be one of the top features that you have all asked for as App Builder users over the last year. So besides CRUD, now we have master detail. So we're really getting there in terms of eliminating the majority of the code that you have to write. So that's it for the demo. Let's jump back over to the slides. Okay, so there you have it. All the cool features that will help you accelerate your app delivery and get that 10x ROI in App Builder. So get App Builder today. Sign up at Infragistics.com, products, App Builder, the website that I showed you. Start building apps. I mean, honestly, there's no risk in this. There's a trial version. You can prototype a screen, start with one of the samples I showed you, start with one of the layouts, and just start seeing how it works. Generate some of that code. Look at the high quality code, the production ready code that we generate, and make up your own mind. I think you'll be pretty happy with the results. I have some representative customers here that are using Ignite UI and Infragistics Ultimate with all of our products. So get on board along with them to deliver amazing experiences to their customers with the best UI components and app building tool in the market today. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank everyone who joined us and answered all the questions in the chat. Please continue to answer the survey that popped up. I usually mention it as soon as we pop it up, but go ahead and please answer that survey and go to appbuilder.dev today to start your trial version. And I'm going to stay online for a few minutes longer. We'll continue to answer questions, and we'll let everyone finish up that survey that popped up. So I appreciate it. Keep in mind the next webinar is in a couple weeks. Go to infragistics.com and watch out for our emails to sign up for those webinars as well. So thanks again, everyone. I really appreciate your time, and we will see you at the next webinar.